Greetings, my name is Michael Miller. This is the Michael Miller Pilates YouTube live video broadcast out to you because you're watching. Thank you. And it's meant for Michael Miller Pilates licensed affiliates and new core students. And it's about, the broadcast is about the brand of Michael Miller Pilates and how the view of that brand can hopefully help you survive as a Pilates instructor. Okay? I don't have much to say today. There's only one thing on my list today, and the title is Window of Opportunity. And the window of opportunity I'm referring to is the window we're in right now, where you and I understand that Pilates has an essence of its own, and it's that essence that supports everything else. And the window of opportunity exists right now because the elite in the Pilates community, the aristocracy of Pilates, is wrapped up with the presumption that who they are and who they learn from is all that matters about the validity of what you teach. Okay? So, I read advertisements for schools that are opening, that are claiming their heritage and their legitimacy from somebody that knew Joe. You know, it's not new. It's happened with many of the teachers that are no longer with us. Right? Bruce King, Eve Gentry, Romana Krasnowska. I mean, it's human nature to venerate tradition as a source of information and participation. But it's not everything in terms of being able to do something, namely instruct Pilates, and how to survive doing that when everyone on the block has a claim to somebody that knew Joe. See? And I mean no disrespect to you. If you were Joe and watching, I think you're gone. And if you're still living and you knew Joe and you're making a life out of that experience, I'm all for it. Go for it. I want to meet you and learn everything you have to remember about Joe. Don't we all? But because there's everyone claiming a sense of authority based on their lineage back to the original teacher, the whole culture has become one where only that lineage matters as a source of legitimization or authority or confidence that you know what the heck you're doing. Because you train with so-and-so, and maybe so-and-so, and they train with so-and-so, and this is how many years for that, and this is how many years for this. And these are all the other things that come in to why this has authority and is what you want to learn about Pilates. I have more than my share of aristocratic lineage, of aristocratic exposure. And I treasure all that I've gotten, or had a chance to have, in terms of conversations and lessons and observations. In my mind, my conversation goes on to say, but all of that can only add texture and flavor and insight to the truth that is already there in Joe's original work. just his book. You just can stop at his book, but all of his original work is an extension of his book because it's harmonious with what is represented in his book and his words and his pictures and his film. And so I don't know anybody if anybody would even see it this way. But from my point of view, this window of opportunity I'm trying to address in this broadcast is the window from now where next to nobody understands about Pilates, red pill Pilates instead of blue pill Pilates, where almost nobody can explain why Pilates is what it is, and insists on keeping it a matter that there is no explanation of why. There is only a passing down of subjective impressions that it would ever be. If that's all it ever was, I would have lost interest a long time ago. And yet, a large body of the 10,000 representations of Pilates thrive within that impression of Pilates, meaning there is no meaning, it has no essence, there is no ideal, it's just a passionate guy that had exercises, and all of what he had was to be evolved by me and others. And this is where we're at in terms of a presumption of what is and what isn't Pilates. It's all my opinion, right? The window of opportunity will end when there's enough of us, you and me, presuming that we have a view beyond just who we are and who we know and who they trained with. Okay? We have an understanding of the subject itself to such an extent and to such a depth and to such a personal understanding and comprehension and sensation of the method that everything else only adds to that personal relationship that all of us deal with or develop when we practice Pilates, right? The window will end when it becomes apparent to maintain an air of superiority that anyone in a role of superiority would seek to maintain. To maintain that, if who you know starts mattering less, or that there's more than just who you know, then what you know might actually matter. Well, then seamlessly, and as though it was that way all along, the aristocracy, by virtue of common acceptance of the obvious, will have to acknowledge what's obvious and then continue on with, and here's how I'm more special than that basic fact, than the basic truth of what's in Pilates. And for me, that will be an indication of me accomplishing, I think, something significant insofar as Pilates will have attained recognition of itself for itself and not be constrained by or arbitrarily presumed to determine what it is by anyone who has an opinion from anywhere with any background. So if you want to survive as a Pilates instructor, and if my sense of the tsunami of Pilates passion will press people to seek higher ground. Part of that higher ground for me will not just be who you are and who you trained with and what your lineage is and what generation you are and what other things you know about besides Pilates. The higher ground of Pilates is somewhere, and I think that has to be toward some understanding of what it is, some better understanding. And I profess that the higher you go, the more obvious it is that there's an ideal within the original work. His choreography, when you pursue that, it's a fundamental movement pattern for the human being to condition itself in reality, in a gravity field, in the world. It's a conditioning routine that takes you from at ease, flat on your back, into standing upright and ready to move away, walk away, run away, jump away, fly away, someday maybe. But this window of opportunity for you to survive as a Pilates instructor, if the pressure is on and it's like, well, what else do you have besides the fact that you knew Joe? Or what can you tell me about Pilates that will matter to me as a Pilates instructor, that will be more than stories about the man? What insight always I would look for, I am looking for, can you give me that will empower me to be a better Pilates instructor? Okay? And maybe a matter of the aristocracy and the elite having to admit that it has an essence of its own won't come to pass for another few generations. Perhaps never. See, that's the point. So you speak your truth when you can and how you can and as clearly as you can, as I can to you. And so I'm very happy for what you know about Pilates, that you value because of who you learned it from, and perhaps even from who they learned it from. Because, see, ultimately it goes back to Joseph Pilates, in my opinion. He wrote the book, he made the choreography, he defined his work, he promised what would happen if you did his work, and there's totally an experience in the pursuit of his work that distinguishes it as unique. Well, no, that's not true. No, it's not true. You can get the complete coordination of body, mind, and spirit where you're totally absorbed in the moment, like when you're race car driving, doing any kind of dangerous sport where things are changing fast and you have to pay attention, a video game. But it takes the present of the observer. It takes the spirit to be present. You have to be concentrating. And I don't know that the broader market of Pilates and anybody that would pursue Pilates is ready to hear about or wants to hear about or is comfortable hearing about the fact that listening is not thinking, and you got to listen as well as think when you do Pilates. And I don't make a point of it, and I usually just say you've got to concentrate because that's considered to be thinking. But in the way that Joe's talking about it, and the way I interpret spirit to be observing and concentrating and being present, concentrating has more to do with listening than with thinking. See, you have, and it's the input. It's the input. It's the sensation, right? Our body, a human being, has sensation. And that sensation becomes input for in here. And at different levels of in there, I think, in different stages of the brain. You know, I think limbic maybe is, I don't know, see, parts of the brain. I don't know it well enough. I just know that there's thinking that's usually attributed to prefrontal cortex is different than the stuff that is more immediate input from the senses, like the amygdala and the hippocampus. And so it's in that spectrum of experience where the listening part, where you're concentrating, has to be present to actually experience the work. And all too sadly, I think so much of the bells and whistles and the bands walking around are making movements without having a sense of what the purpose of the movement is in order to be fully concentrated on performing it. See? I say be proud of who you are and who you learn from. And to be a survivor, recognize that there could be more to what you know, to Pilates, than what you already know. See? There's something about once you know a little bit, you know everything. And I think that's true of anything. And there are Pilates instructors all around the world who recognize not only the image, but the sensation you reach for and engaging, and that you engage in, that the image represents. Yeah. So this is me holding down the button on the mic, trying to get my message out while I can, as best I can. That will last for as long as I hope to have it last, which is way beyond today's day, where everybody's clueless about core new tension, and everybody's still comfortable ignoring what Michael Miller-Pilates says about the method, right? And so it's up to you, if you're the listener. It's not up to you. It's not even that. See, the joy is in the broadcast. I encourage you to look at it that way. So it's not an obligation it's not an obligation for me to make sure I'm communicating with you, as much as it's an obligation for me to communicate what I have to say as clearly as possible, and hope that in that effort we accomplish some kind of exchange of information, and hopefully sense some value in the exchange. All right. YouTube is strange. It's sepia, which I'm not used to, but I've always sort of filmed in sepia when I had the option. Take some of the distraction of color out of things. And then I wait a while, and on my laptop, I go to YouTube on my laptop, and I copy the link from the video to Facebook, with or without commentary about what's in the video. So if you're binging, I hope there's been enough consistency in the message that you feel comfortable with letting go of the binge and owning the information for yourself. And as a part of that you feel, I would say, feel the enormity of what you know. I mean, you know about core new tension. You could never talk the word Pilates or teach Pilates again and go around and teach core new workshops where everybody and anybody learns how to engage in core new tension in their body and make huge immediate impact on how people hold themselves in space, to the point where you actually reduce the load because of how efficiently you engage the musculature. Right? I love being Yoda, pointing into the cave of my client's sensation, right? And they can listen to that sensation and take more control. So in sign language, control. And here at the hips, control. The hips are, the core is a grip at the hips. And that's not a metaphor. That's the way the musculature cooperates with itself. It's the way that the biology accomplishes the physics. I saw what I thought was an old quote calling Joseph Pilates a physicist. And that would be perfect, but I think it was made up recently rather than an old quote. But see, truly, his method, his choreography introduces the body to gravity, space, movement. Fundamental. In such a refined, pure, simple way that everyone tries to come in and add something to it, or change the order, or do something to it. And it's a testament to Joe's work. It's a testament to his accomplishment that very little intrudes upon his original work and stays there. For another broadcast, I'll talk about, exercises that are in the mat sequence that I consider part of my mat and that I do, that are not in Joe's mat in his book. I would make the point, though, that if you understand the idea within Joe's original work, and it's like, oh, what is that? It's simple. The best definition I have, you know this, right? Word for word, you know this. And if you don't, memorize it, because it's the Michael Miller Pilates definition of the ideal within Joe's original work. Uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement. Uniform eccentric loading flowing through progressive patterns of movement. Go to my website and learn the sign language. Hermit.com. See, and I dove right into that. In this tsunami of Pilates passion, in some parts of the world, all the claims of who you are based on who you know have long been established, where in other parts of the world, it's the major drumbeat. I would hope that in other parts of the world where Pilates is new and spreading and the claim to authority is based on a lineage through Joe, can only be half of it, if not even half, compared to understanding why it is what it is, and then using your understanding of that to further distinguish yourself from the tsunami of what's out there, of what's sweeping over us, of what we're swept up in, right? Okay, stickers. I still have my stickers. Order some stickers. Just write me an email and say you want some stickers. We'll go PayPal to do money. The more I give them out, the more at peace I feel, because I've communicated what I came to communicate. And between delivering those and delivering this message to you, I have a personal interaction and an international extension. Of that which in that wants out and to be shared, right? Like all of this. I hope I've done a good job of it, or at least done a sincere enough job that even if you don't agree with me, you understand what I'm saying. Okay? All right. Life can't live forever. Read between the lines. See behind the curtain. Add 2 and 2. Direct your own thinking. And Geist.